All right, so the next one, the last story here, Jake Sullivan ends his China trip with a meeting with Xi Jinping. So Jake Sullivan, Biden's national security advisor, wrapped up his visit in China, and he got a meeting with President Xi. This article is from the South China Morning Post. The first U.S. national security advisor to travel to China in 8 years, I was not aware of that fact, stressed the importance of intense diplomacy with the country as he capped his visit with a meeting with President Xi Jinping. Addressing reporters after the talks on Thursday, Jake Sullivan said Washington's relationship with Beijing would remain competitive, but the two major powers needed to manage ties responsibly. He said, quote, "We're doing that through this very detailed and painstaking multiple rounds of diplomatic effort. And it's not to arrive at a certain end result where everything's just resolved. It's rather to arrive on a stable basis so that each of us can stand up for our interests. This is what this trip was about. That's what the diplomacy of the last few years has been about. And we do believe that it puts us in a position to increase the prospect of stability in this relationship," end quote. So that's an interesting quote. I mentioned this maybe yesterday or last time I talked about Sullivan being in China, is that the way the Biden administration frames its talks with China is not to resolve anything. They're just saying, oh, we're managing our competition. And that's what he just said. I mean, he said, the point of this diplomacy is not to reach a certain end result where everything's just resolved. Basically saying it's not going to be resolved. I mean, that's kind of, that was always my interpretation of what they were saying, but now he's just saying that. So I think it's good that the U.S. and China are talking, but it doesn't really seem like these talks get anywhere. So in his meeting with Sullivan, Xi, the Chinese president, said China's goal is to develop sustainable, stable, and healthy ties with the United States. He said, quote, "It is hoped that the United States will meet China halfway, look at China and its development in a positive and rational manner, see each other's development as an opportunity rather than a challenge, and work together with the Chinese side to find the right way for the coexistence of the two great powers to promote stability in China-U.S. relations," end quote. So he sounds much more diplomatic. And so earlier in the day, Sullivan met with a Chinese military official. I want to find this because I think it is important. This warning that he got, the vice chairman of the powerful Central Military Commission, he warned Sullivan that Taiwan is Beijing's uncrossable first red line. This is a warning that we see from Chinese officials a lot. They call Taiwan the first red line that must not be crossed. He said that Washington must stop its military ties with Taiwan, stop arming Taiwan, and stop spreading false narratives about Taiwan. So this is the warning that China always gives the U.S., but this seems a little stronger than usual. He said, quote, "Resolutely opposing Taiwan independence and promoting reunification is the mission and the duty of the People's Liberation Army. We must respond to the reckless provocations of the Taiwan independence forces," end quote. And they always say that those forces are being emboldened by the U.S. and all this support.